fans wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers as we talk Seahawks football.
Hey Seahawks fans, welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers here in our second show in our long series of shows on draft prospects. This week, we've got the running back class that we're looking at. I expect Seattle to be in the market for a running back this year. Rashad Penny is not under contract, obviously, second year for Ken Walker Jr., but he needs a little bit of help. And I think Seattle's going to go find a little bit of help for him, probably in the draft. Maybe they'll bring in a veteran. I doubt it. Maybe late in, as a late camp invite. But I think they're going to go in the draft this year and find another complimentary back for Ken Walker. And it just depends on the type of back I think that Seattle is looking for. And we can have that conversation today. But welcome in, Keith.
Yeah, so I don't see them taking a running back early. I mean, you've got Ken Walker. You already did that. If they're going to bring in a veteran, my guess is his name is Rashad Penny, and he's on a very cheap, very team-friendly deal. But I agree with you. I think that unless this team sees something in DJ Dallas and they think he's about to take this major step forward, I mean, he looked pretty good last year, but he's not an every down type of player. If Walker gets hurt, you can't depend. I wouldn't depend on Dallas to be the guy. And so I see them going and looking for another one, but they're going to do it in the mid to late rounds, in my opinion, just because you've already got Walker sitting there.
And Travis Homer is a free agent this year. He'll probably come back on a minimum deal, I would imagine, but you're going to need to add some competition. You'd mentioned Rashad Penny. I would love to have Rashad Penny back. I just know that we're not going to be able to depend on Rashad Penny for any more than just say 5 to 7 games. If you get any more out of that from him in the season, you're on the plus side. That needs to be factored in, because when you like to run the ball as effectively as Seattle wants to, you're going to need a dependable body in there. You mentioned DJ Dallas. We saw him break out a little bit in some runs towards the end of last year, but he's not kind of an in between the tackles 3 down back. He's just kind of a guy that you'd put in to spell Walker for a series or two. I would love to see the Seahawks take a look in the draft for a guy that is more of a bell cow kind of a guy that could complement Walker in between the tackles, short yardage situations, maybe catch a few balls out of the backfield, that sort of thing. And kind of instill a little bit more attitude into the offense in the identity, because we just seem to be lacking that, I think, some physicality.
Yeah, I don't know if that's that is a kind of a Pete Carroll hallmark, but is it a Shane Waldron hallmark? In that they want to run the ball and they want to run it effectively, but they want to run it with misdirection, outside zone, have the quarterback bootleg off the back side of it enough that it keeps guys from crashing in. And I don't know if just being, grinded out physical is the identity Seattle's going for, but at the same time, it's still Pete Carroll, right? You still got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to effective. And if it's 3rd and 1, you better be able to pick that up every time. And
I think ideally, go ahead.
I was saying, I agree with you. I think that needing between the tackles kind of power back is something that they need right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, ideally, they do both. And they have the guy that's the power guy and kind of a little bit of an attitude, hard to bring down, breaks tackles, but can still operate within the offense. What did you think overall, before we kind of get into the nuts and bolts, individual players, of the overall running back draft class this year in the 2023 draft?
I don't think it's a great overall class. I think there's some talent mixed in. I think there's a lot of guys that just don't fit what Seattle wants to do. But they'll be great. Maybe not great, but they'll be good for other teams. Just lighter guys, smaller guys, a lot of out of the backfield kind of receivers, 3rd down back style, like Travis Homer replacements. But that's not what I was looking for when I was doing this. And
yeah,
so,
I get that. I get that. I disagree in a little bit. I think there's 4 or 5 guys in this draft that fit the mold of what Seattle's looking for. So,
well, true. If you have four or five guys, is not a lot. That's not a lot.
And 215 plus pounds. I think, yeah, it's not a lot, but there are guys out there that can help Seattle.
You're going to see 20, 25 running backs get drafted this year, just like every other year. And if 5 of them fit what Seattle wants to do, that's not a large pool of players.
Okay, maybe it's more like 7 or 8. And let's pay attention. Let's have this conversation. Let's go through the list. Let's pay attention, and let's at the end we'll count them up. Obviously, at the top of the draft, everyone's talking about Bijan Robinson,
and rightfully so,
being the guy, winner of the 2022 Doak Walker Award as the best running back in college football. He's got it all, really. 6 foot, 220 pounds, so he's got the size, 4.4 speed, 4.49. So he can bounce it, he can get outside, he can take it home with the opportunities. He just did everything for Texas in the last couple of years, and he's everything that anybody I think in the NFL would love to have out of a running back, regardless of scheme. He would be great in Seattle. I just don't, unless something weird happens where we pick up an additional first-round draft pick and we end up with 3 first-round draft picks and we've got one to burn. And this guy, they've just identified him as being the best player on their board. And here he is sitting at the board at 20 or 27 or wherever we are. And they just can't help but pick him. That's one scenario. But other than that, he's going to get picked up by somebody else and be a great back in the NFL. I just don't see it being Seattle.
Yeah, I just don't see how drafting him makes Seattle better. Given the other huge needs they have on this roster, especially on the defensive side of things, and the presence of Ken Walker on the roster already, how does drafting him make Seattle significantly better? I just don't see it. So that's why he's not on my radar. Yeah, he's a Seattle fit, but I don't think he is a Seattle player because of where he's going to go in the draft.
It's interesting that you say that. When you said those words out loud to me, as far as I just don't see it. I don't see him fitting or being a Seattle back because we have other needs. We've already got Ken Walker. It's interesting in the NFL. You just never know how drafting a player influences your roster down the road. Obviously, running back is the most difficult job in the NFL to stay healthy with. Seattle's had its share. And adding Robinson to that room along with Walker, dude, I mean, how would that not help Seattle? I mean, that would just be an amazing add, I think, to a room that would put Seattle in the best running back tandem situation in the NFL. There's no question. Now, would it be a luxury pick at that situation? Yes, of course.
That's what
Seattle
I mean.
has lots of picks, but
does it matter? Does it matter that you've got the best running back room in the league if you can't stop the other team? So therefore, you're playing from behind and throwing the ball all game.
Yeah.
Or if you can't run block.
Yes, all of those. But think about how many games last year we couldn't run the ball because one of the 2 guys was injured. And
you sure it was that, and not because the interior of the offensive line was trash?
Right. All of that. No, all of that. It goes together. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I'm just saying.
Right guard,
if we had him, I'd
and
take
you could run the ball with anybody. So, let's move on.
So the next on the list would be Jamar Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama. The nice thing about him is he's really young, age 20. 5'11", 200 pounds, a little on the light side for what Seattle likes to do, but and Ken Walker's already kind of that back in a way that he's very effective catching the ball out of the backfield and in open space. Jamar Gibbs would be that sort of a running back. He would be a guy that you would want to get the ball to in space, wide zone stuff. That kind of fits what Seattle likes to do, receiving the ball out of the backfield. He also has kick return ability, one of the very few backs in this draft that does that, and he does it very well. But he also had 44 receptions for 444 yards, led the college football in receptions for a running back.
So we're talking about Seattle needing a guy that's between the tackles, a little more of a power back than Ken Walker, and you're looking at a guy who's 10 pounds lighter and also significantly slower than Walker. Again, this is a guy that is likely to be taken early round 2, but not a guy that I think is on Seattle's radar.
Yeah. No, I think he's a breakaway guy. I mean, not considerably slower. He runs a 4.4640, which is pretty decent for a running back at that size. 22.3 miles per hour on the clock this last year. And yeah, I mean, you're right though. Seattle's not going to be looking for this style of running back, I don't think. And as we go through the list, there's another guy, that's next, Devin Achene, the running back from Texas A&M. Again, a small running back, but very fast. I mean, ran a 4.2440 at 5'9", 185. I just don't know how a back like that fits in Seattle.
So that 5'9", 185 to 190, you're not drafting this player to be a running back. You're drafting this player to be a slot receiver / running back / right. They're a gadget guy. They're a guy that's going to return punts. They're going to do a million things for you. But is not a guy that you're going to line up between and run between the tackles.
But
not at 185.
At some point, there is a situation I can imagine Seattle ending up with some sort of a gadget player.
No, that's what I mean. I could see that too. I'm just saying you're not drafting him to be that between the tackles runner. You're drafting him to be something else.
Yeah, of course. But this is one of college football's best players in space once he had the ball. And I could see Seattle wanting a weapon like that. I mean, San Francisco's got Deebo Samuel, catching balls out of the backfield and so forth, and they get him the ball in space. It wouldn't be the same sort of player, but it would be something to give us a speed element, an element of surprise, an element that you could get the guy in space and have him be a threat from anywhere on the field. That would be something I think Seattle would benefit from. I just don't see it.
The Seahawks tried to draft this player a couple of years ago. And what they got was a wide receiver that can't stay healthy and can't get open and can't catch the ball. And and it's just been a waste of a second round draft pick. But
so far,
essentially it's kind of, listed at running back instead of at wide receiver, but it's the same kind of player, fast, small, very shifty, great in space. And I could see them deciding, hey, we've been trying to find this guy for some time, and here's our opportunity to get what we thought we were getting before, and it hasn't worked out.
With the Eskridge, right?
Yeah,
right. Okay, so now to me, this is kind of the meat and potatoes section of our conversation, where we're talking about running backs that are available in the third round and beyond. First guy I want to talk about was Zach Charbonnet, the running back out of UCLA, 6'1",
one of my favorite guys
pounds.
in this draft for Seattle.
Yeah, and he's fast. I mean, he runs a 4.4140 at that size. Very
220 pounds.
Yes.
He looks a big
great.
guy with
he
speed.
Looks great. Yeah, he looks great. Runs upright a little bit, which is a slight concern. Other than that, he's got all the attributes that you want, the combination of size, strength, speed, feet, run between the tackles, catches the ball out of the backfield. He'd be a great third round option for Seattle that really fits what they're trying to do.
Yeah, he would be a great fit for Seattle. Honestly, I think he's of the potential Seattle picks, he's probably my favorite player at this position, just because of he's what this team wants. You're right, he runs a little upright. I think that can probably be coached. I think it's, in super short yardage where you want him to just hit a hole, I think you can get him to keep his pad level a little lower, but it's more he runs upright in order to help his vision and know where to bounce and that kind of stuff. He runs with pretty good power too. Like he's a hard guy to take down. He is. He breaks tackles. He runs workhorse type mentality. All the things, really. It'd be a great pick. I wouldn't hate that pick at all if it comes in the third round or later.
I have a feeling the guy's going to go through the combine and he's going to start rising up some boards. He's probably already up there in the NFL. Wouldn't shock me if he's a back end of the second round guy, top end of the third round. Seattle might not just be in a position to get a back like that.
Actually, he like that for that fifth pick that Seattle has. And this is assuming they don't move down and pick up other picks and fall along the way. Right now, they've got 5 picks in the top 3 rounds. That last one, this would be a good spot if he's there. I would have a hard time seeing them pass on him.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. They may have a couple other backs identified in later rounds, but you just never know. You just never know. So you're talking about the number 52 to 83 pick. So they've got 52 and 83 right now. So if, 83, if he reached 83, you'd have to really consider him. I mean, he'd be one of the best players available on any big board at that spot.
Yeah.
I see him probably going closer into the 50 to 60 range in this draft.
Yeah, I was thinking low 60, 68, 69, somewhere in there. And then, but yeah, if he dropped another half a round and he's available, I think he would be someone that the Seahawks would struggle to pass on.
I would too. Zach Evans is an interesting back for me because he's 6 foot, 215, runs a 4.42, but he doesn't look like a big back. He doesn't. He has a smaller frame. So when you take a look at him, he's got small ankles, small arms, not really, built, but he's 6 foot, 215. You'd think he'd be a decent sized running back. I'm just saying he looks like a smaller running back. And I'm not sure Seattle would be in the market for a guy like Zach Evans.
You know what Zach Evans does really well is receive the ball deep down the field. He tracks the ball well, adjusts, can catch the ball out when he's out of balance because the ball is poorly thrown. Does a lot of those kind of things where I don't know if that's a Seattle trait that you're looking for that's if someone with that skill set, you've got to take him. But at the same time, like this is a guy that there's a lot to like there, but despite his size, you're right, he doesn't run like a power back. He runs at 215 like a guy who's trying to avoid contact. And that's not typically what Seattle looks for.
And I don't see him lasting in the NFL as far as his body type. I don't know. A little small for me. Sean Tucker, running back out of Syracuse, 5'10", 205, runs a 4.54 40, which is about where Chris Carson was, just to give you an idea. Receives the ball well out of the backfield. To me, he's just another guy. There's about 4 or 5 guys in this draft. This guy, a couple other ones behind him that we're going to mention, they all fit in this kind of same category. They'd be fine. They're okay, but they kind of got this DJ Dallas feel to me, where they come in, they're an okay pro, they show up, they're able to operate for you, but they really don't do anything special. They don't have any unique attributes to bring to the table. He's one of them to me. Yeah,
I'd give you that. That's a pretty good summary. He just doesn't bring anything where you look at him and you go, yeah, this guy has a potential to be special, because he just doesn't do a lot of things poorly. I think at 205, he's a little small for what Seattle looks for. They tend to look for guys around 220, 215 to 220, maybe 225, and 205 is on the small side for them.
So what did you think of Tank Bigsby? You mentioned his name the other day as a fun name in the NFL.
He's got the best running back name.
Fitting, but what did you think of his actual skill set?
He's not as fast as I was kind of hoping to see. Runs about a 4.5 or 4.48, somewhere in that range. And at 213, I was hoping for him to run with a little more power, but he has such good balance and agility. You see a lot of guys not able to square him up. So he falls forward a lot. He takes hits and stays on his feet and keeps going. And has that first or second step that's really quick. So when you hit him and you get his feet to stop, if you don't get him down, he can get back up to speed really quick. I think he has the makeup of a guy that can actually run the ball really well in the middle because of those traits, even though he's not quite as big as fast as some of the other guys in this draft class. I think he'd be a good fit for Seattle.
Again, to me, just a little bit vanilla as far as a
Really?
running back is concerned. Just
Interesting.
he flashes all those attributes, as far as being compact and balance and agility. He flashes the burst. He flashes the, ability to accelerate, but consistently, he just wasn't that productive. He had 178 attempts in his last year, 976 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns. Holds onto the ball relatively well with one fumble, 30 receptions, 180 yards. To me, it's just one of those regular guy type production NFL running back things. And I didn't see too much in there that I would be other than just kind of a DJ Dallas or Travis Homer replacement level kind of guys.
Yeah. I think his balance and his ability to take a hit, not go down, I thought was better than those two guys. But you're right. He's 213. He runs a 4.48 or a 4.5. These aren't special attributes, but I do think his balance and his ability to break a tackle, gives me enough to think that he's going to be a productive NFL player.
Kenny McIntosh, running back out of Georgia. Here's another guy. To me, it's just another guy. I mean, I saw some special things there, but not tremendous. 6'1", 210 pounds, runs a 4.52 40. This is the size range that Seattle would be interested in, especially if he could add another 5 or 10 pounds of muscle onto that frame. He's a good pass blocker. He's patient. He kind of lets plays develop in front of him and can cut and go. But again,
he's a guy that would do really well and just look incredibly productive on a team that has a really good offensive line. If he is seeing guys in the backfield where he can't just, get to his spot, make his cut and go, I think he's going to struggle. Anyone can, or I'm going to say anyone, but a lot of guys can look better with a good offensive line. But I think it's one of those things where, with a good enough offensive line, you could get a lot out of a player like this. But with a weaker offensive line, he could look really, really bad. There's just a lot of swing depending on the O-line quality.
Yeah. Super productive back in a smaller school, UAB. Dwayne McBride, I thought looked interesting. And super productive over the course of the last couple of years in a smaller school, 5'11", 215 pounds, 4.5, 240, 1,700 yards as a sophomore. Again, 1,700 yards as a junior, and good pass protector, and kind of did it all for them. A back like that would be interesting to me, especially if you can get a guy like that in the 5th round or something like that. I think would be a good spot to get a back that's super productive, has the size requirements, and played for a smaller school, just needs a little bit.
Yeah, he's a guy that
time.
For him, my biggest concern is he's not the quickest guy out there, and he's been super productive because he's got a lot of carries. There's going to be a lot less tread on the tires with him than some of the other guys that we've talked about.
Couple of smaller guys, Deuce Vaughn, Kansas State. Seattle's not going to draft that. Tyjae Spears, the running back out of Tulane, 5'10", 200 pounds, runs a 4.4 40. Seattle might be attracted to the speed there. Again, we've talked about those type of players. Eric Gray, 5'10", 211 pounds, 4.4 40, thick lower body, breaks tackles. Seattle might be interested in a player like Eric Gray out of Oklahoma.
He's got that running back look with, like you said, the thick lower body, breaks tackles, runs with the wide base. So good balance, good lateral agility, even though, and he's got straight line speed, good agility. I don't know if his first or second step is particularly quick. But once he gets up to speed, he can run away from people. He looks like a guy that would do really well in a zone blocking scheme, similar to what Seattle runs. I think he has a chance to be a real productive player.
Interesting. So I kind of skipped along those two or three players fairly quickly because there's two players that I really want to talk about as far as being really legitimate options, I think, for Seattle. And the first one we mentioned was Zach Charbonnet, and you're going to have to get him between pick 50 and 70 in this draft, I think, in order to have him on your team. And I don't know if Seattle's, at that importance level for the running back spot this year. They've got so many other holes. You'd mentioned those, and players that are in the draft value-wise at position groups, they might favor to pick some defensive players and so forth where he's going to go. So, but later on, when you get into the fourth round, the fifth round, there's a couple of guys that are on my radar, one of which I think was going to end up moving up a little bit. One guy, Kendre Miller, the running back out of TCU, is an interesting player for me because I probably spent about 45 minutes watching this guy. And 6 foot, 220 pounds, runs a 4.58 40 projected. I'm telling you right now, though, he runs faster than that. He's faster than that. I'm going to say probably in the 4.48 range. At least that's what it looks like to me on tape. 1,399 yards, 6.2 average, 17 TDs, receives the ball out of the backfield. Bigger back, but plays light on his feet, jukes and jump cuts with a lot of effect. Looks faster than 4.58. I've told you that. Great contact balance, strength to fight through contact. I like this back. Kendre
For
Miller,
a guy who's
TCU.
220 pounds, he really doesn't like contact. He runs out of bounds a lot. He is a guy that just doesn't run with the power and just looking for contact the way you expect backs his size to do. And that's not necessarily a major problem. I mean, there's been plenty of other, like Ken Walker doesn't exactly run into contact all the time either. I'm just saying, like, when I saw 220 and the fact that, he's not the fastest guy, although you said you think he's faster than his numbers. When I went and looked, I was expecting this to be a guy that just likes to run people over, and I didn't see that. And I was a little disappointed by that.
Yeah, he's definitely, like I said, he plays lighter on his feet, so he's not. I'm not going to say he avoids contact. I'm just going to say he's quick enough to avoid contact and gains 4 or 5 yards rather than trying to fight through somebody to do that. But I think that he can fight through contact and pick up yards after tackle attempts and so forth. So I saw something there on tape that I was kind of excited for, and a mid-round guy that you kind of work with that give you a little juice.
Yeah. A guy that in that same area that I like is Chris Rodriguez Jr. out of University of Kentucky. He's a bigger guy at 224 pounds, runs about the same as a lot of these guys that we're talking about at 4.55. So he doesn't have that breakaway speed, doesn't have that where he's going to run away from guys, but runs with incredible balance, incredible power, good vision, fights for yardage, keeps his feet moving it all the time. A guy that's going to be your between the tackles, if you block well for him, he can get, a lot of yards. If you don't block well for him, he's still going to bounce off someone and get 2 or 3. Just a guy that's, like I said, he's not explosive, not a guy that's going to break away and hit those home run balls, but is a guy that's going to be productive between the tackles for you.
So a couple of things for me that I saw when I looked at him is that I saw that downhill running style, no question, but it looked to me more like a fullback than a running back as far as his body style, his lumbering style, the way that he ran. He's not going to juke anybody. He's not going to get to the outside edge and hit a home run for you at all. He's going to be that guy that's going to be a short yardage guy. And I didn't see a lot more than that. I didn't see a lot more than just that short yardage back. I don't know if he could carry a team. and be a 3-down back. I didn't receiving the ball out of the backfield. I think he had
he didn't have a lot of
five receptions for 41 yards.
Yeah, he's not a receiver, but
right.
I saw him as a between the tackles runner. You're right, not a guy that you don't want to try and get him outside. He's not going to run away from anyone, but he's going to hit holes effectively, run through contact. You're not going to arm tackle this guy down, and he's going to be productive in the middle.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he has good feet, good balance. He hits hard. He's not afraid of contact at all. But it wouldn't surprise me if he transitions into a fullback in the NFL at some point.
He's a little small for that.
He's a little small for now, but he's 5'11", 224. He could easily his frame looked like he could carry 240.
Well, if you're looking at 240 and a possible conversion into fullback, why don't we talk about Tavion Thomas, who's 6'2", 247, runs a 4'6", 4'5'9", somewhere in there. His skills as a runner, I think, translate pretty well because of his vision and power, but ultimately he's a big guy who doesn't change direction quite as fast as you'd expect an NFL running back to. Looks like a guy with fullback written all over him, but can also run, be a short yardage guy that can, get you that 3rd and short or goal line runner. Really good leg drive, pushes the pile, north-south runner, not going to try and bounce and do anything fancy. He's just going to take what's there and run somebody over trying to do it.
Yeah. Out of Utah. I mean, 247 pounds, at 6'2". The guy could probably transition into being a tight end. I mean, it's just crazy. I don't know. I liked him. The other guy that I really had my eye on for Seattle is Roschon Johnson. I've talked about him before.
Kind of skipped him.
The running back that's in Texas, behind Bijan Robinson. So nobody really talks about him or anything like that. But 6'2", 225 pounds, runs a 4.39 40 at 6'2", 225. Only had 554 yards rushing for 6.0 average, 5 touchdowns, 14 receptions this last year. And those sorts of stats were consistent in his sophomore, junior year as well. But he's really good in working in space. I think that he's a very athletic guy, and he's going to test really well. And I think teams will value his ability between the tackles, but he's a running back that also does more in space as well than his frame would dictate. He's just so athletic and has that speed. He really could develop into a 3-down back in the NFL.
Yeah, it's weird that he's playing behind a guy that's absolutely special, and so that makes it hard to get on the field when you've got someone who's just significantly better than you, above you. But that doesn't mean he isn't a guy that can make it work at the next level and do some stuff. He's got a lot of tread left on the tires. Because he just doesn't have a lot of usage.
I was actually surprised that he didn't transfer. He would have been a guy to me that would have benefited from transferring, I think. But he's got an opportunity now. Well, let's see what happens. Somebody's going to draft him, and I think somebody's going to get a really good running back, and wouldn't be a hater if it was Seattle. Another guy to look out for in the later rounds is Chase Brown at Illinois, 5'11", 215 pounds, fits exactly what Seattle's looking for at 4'4", 240. Highly productive at Illinois with 1,600 yards, 5.0 average, 27 receptions, 240 yards. He'd be a guy that has a great initial burst and can really come in and be somebody that could spell Ken Walker for a couple series a game, really.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be, to me, and I don't have a great reasoning for, I don't have anything in particular that makes me think this, but when I watched him, I saw this is a guy who is like DJ Dallas. He's good for a few series a game, spell your starter, but not a guy that if your starter goes down is going to step into that role and carry your offense. And
he might be able to develop into that, but I can see that.
But yeah, and like I said, I don't actually have a great, here's why with him. It was just a feeling that I got that watching him run. And I just think that he's a guy that he belongs in an NFL roster. He'll be productive when given an opportunity, but he's going to benefit by not being the every down back.
And that speed, you just can't teach that at 4.42.
Yeah.
You know, and he ran, I think, what did it say? 22.5 miles per hour on the GPS on his longest touchdown run of the year. Bruce Feldman's freak list, number 33 overall. Guys like that end up making the NFL only because they're such great athletes. They end up being special teams aces. And he's got an opportunity to do that as well as if he can develop in returning kicks.
Yeah, if he can play special teams, he's going to have a reasonably long NFL career just because of his athleticism and his special teams play. Hopefully he can develop and be useful to an offense as well.
So we've gone, there's a few more. I mean, we keep talking for a while. There's some later guys too that wouldn't be surprising if Seattle has on the roster by the end of it all. But is there anybody that stood out to you that just says Seahawks guy all over him?
Rashawn Johnson and Charbonnet are the two guys that I kind of have looked at and said those guys appear to be those are Seahawks. They, whether they're drafted by Seattle or not, they're still a Seahawk player. After that, it's, to me, there's just not a lot of guys that I'm just like, oh, absolutely, this is a guy that we should be watching.
Yeah. I think you could say that Seattle might be comfortable moving on from Travis Homer because they could find a replacement in this draft.
There's a lot of,
like a third running back on the team type of a player. Now, that's not counting Penny, but it would be DJ Dallas, Ken Walker, and a draft pick. And I think there's plenty to choose from in this draft. It just depends on what Seattle scouts, what they favor, what they like, what they think they can develop, because DJ Dallas is in the last year of his contract this year. So it'd be a guy that could eventually come in and be, the second or third guy.
Honestly, I'd love to see them draft, especially if it's in like 6th or 7th round, Tavion Thomas out of Utah and turn him into a short yardage back / fullback. And we can finally have someone on the roster who can play fullback whose name isn't Nick Bellore. Cause I get that he's a captain and there's things that he does that aren't just on the field, but I'm seeing less and less reason to have him on the roster every year.
Who's the kid, the all-pro, the Pro Bowler on San Francisco's roster? Tudzik or something like that.
Starts with the J. Juszczyk.
San Francisco uses, a fullback, and we kind of run the same offense. I'm wondering if Shane Waldron would enjoy it. I mean, we've taken some players and put them in as a quote unquote fullback that had no business being there. Like
a defensive
Young.
end.
Yeah. Or, just some guys that can block, but that's not
true.
really their primary job.
Jarick Young, a wide receiver, played fullback a little bit last year.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if Seattle would benefit from a player like that full time.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see that guy, because then you've got a guy. I mean, if things go terribly in terms of injuries, Thomas is not a guy that you're going to run your full offense with, and he's going to be running outside zones and taking the ball, a home run hitter, but he can run between the tackles for you, and he'll run with power. And if you don't have it where things go really poorly that way, you've got a fullback, you got someone that can grind out, third and shorts, with consistency, that kind of stuff.
Chris Rodriguez might fit that role as well.
True. I just think he's a little smaller, at 224. So yes, he does. But I like the idea of Tavion Thomas as a actual fullback on the roster.
Who's the kid that's in Green Bay that kind of fills that role? I can't remember. I was really interested in when the draft came around. He ended up going to Green Bay. Bigger back, similar sort of attributes. I could definitely see Charbonnet, one of these players, Charbonnet, Dwayne McBride type, Eric Gray out of Oklahoma, Kendre Miller, the TCU back I talked about. I really like him. Rashawn Johnson, the guy you mentioned, Chase Brown, the running back out of Illinois. I think these are the type of backs. Maybe the Israel Good
luck.
Abikanda out of Pittsburgh, the 5'11", 215 pounds, runs a 5'4", 540. A guy like that. Evan Hall, we saw in the Senior Bowl. He wasn't a horrible looking running back. Abram out of Minnesota, little slower, also 25-year-old guy. There's a few others, but yeah, it's an interesting list. We're going to have a running back. I mean, to me, we've got 9 picks in the draft. We're going to have a running
10 picks in the draft because the 7th round pick that they traded away for somebody, ended up not like it was a conditional pick and right. it didn't convey. So, the Seahawks got it back. They're currently sitting with 10 picks in the draft.
7th round pick, 238 overall.
Yep.
Yeah. So fun conversation. Looking forward to the combine to see some of these guys.
I hope a bunch of them run faster than what their expected are, because otherwise this isn't as interesting a list as
Seattle hasn't put a premium on running backs with speed other than Ken Walker. All of our running backs that we've taken a look at, including Chris Carson, we're in the 4-5 range. And
Chris Carson was also a 7th round draft pick.
True. But look at how that worked. I mean, that still works in the NFL. A guy that you don't have to be run a 4.40 or lower to be effective in the NFL as a running back. And especially in the role that I think that we're trying to identify Seattle as having. I'm not sure that speed is the premium that you're.
Yeah. I mean, you've got guys, Rawls wasn't fast. Carson wasn't fast. Carson was almost a 4.6. It's like 4.56.
Beast Mode was a 4.5 guy,
Yeah. But none of those guys were.
He was a beast.
None of those guys were home run hitters. They were grinded out between the tackle guys. And if that's what Seattle needs, which I think they do, then you're right. Finding a guy that's around 4.5 will be good enough. The Ken Walker pick and the fact that they're running a completely new offensive system makes me wonder if speed is going to be a larger premium now than it was in the past.
That's why I think a guy like Rashawn Johnson is very viable for Seattle in the 100 and let's just say 115 to 140 range, because he's the big prototypical back at 6'2", 225, but runs a 4.3, 940. So he's going to give you the best of both worlds. A guy like that would be at a premium, I think. Okay, cool. That's it.
That's a lot of players.
Yeah, that is a lot of players. That's a fun conversation. I think we'll have less to talk about in the tight end group. We're going to do tight ends on our next show. And Seattle really doesn't need a tight end. So that'll be a fun conversation. You know where to find Keith. You can find him at Myers NFL on Twitter. You can find me at NWC Hawk. You know where the show's at. When you find it, hit subscribe and share, and that would be great for us. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWC Hawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.